This is an interview with James Kimmey, Professor Emeritus of Computer-Aided Design with Elgin Community College, living in Elgin, Illinois. Jim was employed with Elgin Community College from 1968 to 1990 and made significant contributions to the college within the areas of computer-aided design and drafting, as well as the many grants he received to support his program and his students. This interview is being conducted on February 17th, 2016 at his home in Elgin. The interviewer is Polly Nash, and the interview is being recorded by Jack Weiss. Good afternoon.
Hello.
Thank you so much for inviting us into your home.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
May we start first with a little bit about your own background, where you were born, and when you were born, and a little bit about your family?
Okay. I was born in Aurora, Illinois. I think the first town I remember is a little town off 47, just east of 47, Bristol, Illinois. We moved to Plano, Illinois in 1936 when I was in 4th grade. I went all through the Plano public schools, starting with kindergarten through high school. My dad had a hard time during the Depression. He worked WPA. My mother used to teach when she was younger at the old country schools, and she taught around in Kane County and I think some in DeKalb County.
Now, tell me about what your father did with WPA.
Okay, well, I remember before he could find a job, they were working on the sidewalks in Plano. And a lot of the sidewalks were broken up and some places had no sidewalk. So the WPA then was constructing sidewalks there. There was a relief truck that brought food around. It wasn't very good food, but the relief truck. And then I remember one time we went to the store and we got clothes to wear to school because we were relatively poor. My dad finally got a job in a foundry, and he worked for many years in the foundry before he realized that it wasn't for him. He was an excellent mechanic. He could fix everything. In fact, a kind of a little story, he didn't have a car, and so he went to the local dealer, the Dodge dealer, and said, I need to buy a car. And the Dodge dealer said, well, I have a Chevrolet that won't run. If you can fix it, I'll sell it to you cheap. I think he paid $20 for the car, and he got it to run. But he was a good mechanic. And I think I tried to follow him for many years because I wanted to be a mechanic too, until you lose too many skin off your knuckles, and you say, well, mechanic isn't really a very good job. But aside from that, we survived. And we're basically in good health. I had 2 brothers. One of them was a teacher down at Morton, Illinois, just outside of Peoria. He taught Latin and German and English. And we always called him the slow one. He graduated at the head of his class in, I think it was 1948. But anyway, he recently passed away with, he had multiple sclerosis. Here again, extensive nerve damage. And, but one thing my dad was very proud of, in 1963, 2 Kimmey boys received their master's degree from Illinois State at the same time. They walked around. First of all, Jim, and then Raymond got it after I got mine. So my dad was really proud of that.
I'll bet he was.
But my younger brother, he worked for many years with Western Electric in Aurora, and he's retired now. He's had some health problems, but he's very good-natured, so I guess that's kind of nice.
So you were in Plano schools,
yes,
school district, until when you graduated in 12th grade?
Yes, I graduated in 1950. There were 18 in our graduating class, so I was probably a middle student. I wasn't the top of the class. I did take 2 years of Latin, but That I'm not very proud of the grades I got in Latin, but I passed them, so I guess it was okay. I participated in a small school. You have to participate because we had 100 and some students in the high school. So you had to participate in athletics, in basketball, football, and baseball. So, I participated in all those. I wasn't really a super athlete, but I enjoyed it.
And so when you graduated in 1950, then what did you do?
At that time you knew you had to have a job, and I knew I had to buy a car. So I went to work at a local factory that made faucets. Federal Hubert was the name of the factory. And so I worked there for about a year, and I decided, no, I want to be a mechanic. So I went to automotive school in Chicago, and I learned the ins and outs of how to fix a car. At least I thought I did. And a lot of my fellow students, fellow people that I knew, teenagers and so forth, I would fix their car practically free. And they'd say, cars didn't last very long like they do now. And so I would say, okay, well, you need a valve job. I'll do that for you for $5 or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so I learned how to work on cars by doing them very reasonably for them. And then, of course, the war was going in Korea. And so it was either the Army, or I thought, well, if I go to the Air Force, I probably can be a mechanic. A mechanic in the Air Force, you don't do much of anything. They say, pack those wheel bearings, or check the oil in that Jeep, That's about the extent of mechanics in the Air Force. So, first of all, I went to Texas, spent a few months in Texas, and everybody said, overseas duty is the best duty, right? So what I did was, I volunteered for overseas. Went to New York to Camp Kilmer, and saw New York City for the first time. I was not impressed with New York City, but anyway.
So this was, 1952?
1952, yes,
Okay.
in 1952. And so anyway, my first assignment then, they put us on a boat and sent us to French Morocco. Now, where is French Morocco? Well, it's on the coast of Africa. It's a land of contrast. You drive through the countryside of Morocco, you think it's the biblical days. It's grass shacks, it's camels going around the mill, the well pumping water, and so forth. But Casablanca itself is a very modern city. So we spent there, I spent about 9 months there, and at that time, the conflict with Russia was getting hot and heavy, so they said, well, we need to build new bases in Europe. So because we were a automotive, kind of like a construction outfit in Africa, they said, we're going to send you to France to help build the NATO bases in France. So away we went to France. And I remember walking into the personnel office there in France, and the warrant officer, George Dibble was his name, said, any of you type? And I says, I took typing in high school. How would you like to be in personnel? And I thought, well, yeah, that sounds pretty good. So he sent me to Germany for about 10 weeks to learn how to make out military pay orders, how to work on the 201 file, all the things like that. And then I came back, and I've been off and on in personnel for the rest of my career in the Air Force. We were assigned basically, now this is going to sound terrible, what they call a SCARWOF unit, Special Category Army with Air Force. Because the Army were the engineers, they knew how to drive the trucks, and the Air Force, we were just excessive, extra help. So eventually we got out of SCARWOF because you had to get up in the morning for reveille, right? You had to stand guard mount, had to do all the things like that. The Air Force doesn't do. The advantage of the Air Force is you always have 3 square meals a day and a warm bed to sleep on. In the Army, that's not necessarily true. So anyway, then we got transferred back to the Air Force, and finally got transferred back to the Air Force, where life was more like normal for us. So anyway.
So where were you stationed in France?
I was stationed just outside of Nancy, France, in a little town called Tours-Rosières.
And how do you remember how to spell that?
Nancy is Nancy.
Okay.
Toul Rosier is Toulroisier. I think so. That's something close anyway.
You. Thank
yes.
you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so how long were you in France then?
Well, I was there about 2.5 years altogether. A friend of mine named Eddie Hanley passed away a couple of months ago. Used to go downtown on Saturday night or whenever we had free time. The advantage of the Air Force is you had what they call a Class A pass, which meant at 5 o'clock at night, you were free to do what you wanted to, all day Saturday, all day Sunday, do what you want to do. So a friend of mine, Eddie, and I used to go downtown, and we would go, at that time there were some nice, I call them nightclubs if you'd love to, in Nancy. Nancy was a big town, about 500,000 or so. And so we would go to these different nightclubs and dance. One night there was 2 French girls sitting in the corner, and Eddie and I said, "You think they'd like to dance?" They said, "Well, we could ask." So he went over and asked them to dance. And that was the start of the relationship between Renee and I, and Eddie, and eventually his wife. And so we used to do a lot of things together. We associated a lot with the French, and not just the Americans, GIs. We associated a lot with the French. And I really enjoyed it. People would invite us out to dinner and out to supper, things like that. The French people would. So eventually, we started getting serious, and I said, "Well, if we get married, I want to go to college." I said, "Mechanic is okay, that's all right, but I want to try college." I said, some of my friends went, and they weren't very smart either, and they got their degree. So I think I can get my degree too. So she said, whatever you want. So we got married in 1956, and then we came back to the United States. I spent...
Now, did she speak English? Did you speak French?
She spoke more English than I spoke French, but we managed. GIs always find a way to communicate. Okay, I shouldn't say that, but we did. We got along okay, and she did a good job of learning English. She did a good job of learning it. But so we came down. Then I had about 6 months left on my 4-year enlistment. So they sent us to South Carolina. And so I spent 6 months in South Carolina. And here again, the personnel said, "You typed?" "Yeah, I typed." "How'd you like to make out what they call military pay orders?" And so I said, "Yeah, fine." So, okay, I sat in the office and I made military pay orders for basically the officers down there. And then I was discharged, and I had made all arrangements to go to Illinois State. So we come back to Plano. And, summers we used to spend, my folks were very good. My mother was not in good health, and so my wife would do the cooking and the cleaning, and then we would stay there in the summer and save money. And I always was able to find a job. The one time I was unemployed in the summertime, I looked in the paper and they said, "Oh, we want people to sell pots and pans." So I said, "No." I finally got a job in Plano, and I was able to get money to go back to school. GI Bill was not too lucrative back then, but it was enough to survive. The first year we were down at Illinois State, we lived in a 2-car garage, but it was warm and it was nice. It was okay. Then after that, we were able to find a regular apartment to stay in. But and my first son was born, Robert, and he was a dream kid. He was very good, but anyway, he was born there in February of '57, and so now I had a family. So I worked part-time. I worked about 20-25 hours a week at a grocery store, and with a GI Bill, we managed to survive.
So
we didn't buy it.
So that was in Normal.
That was in Normal, down at Illinois State. Yes, and then I was able to. We got some credit for military service. So I was able to finish up basically in 3.5 years. And so then I decided, hey, if you're going to stay in education, you need at least a master's. So I started work on my master's degree when I was still a student down there.
And so, so you wanted to go into education, so you knew you needed a master's degree. Did you complete your master's then, or did you start working?
No, I didn't complete the master's. I did take a course. We had I remember right, Dr. Lichty was his name. He was an advocate of the community college. And of course, at that time, the only community college was Joliet. Joliet was the only community college in Illinois. And he expounded upon why the community college was the way to go. So I took several courses in my master's with him. And so I got a job then in Elgin, in U46, teaching at Ellis Junior High School, teaching drafting and printing courses, because at that time printing was a big field for people to work in. And so I taught drafting and printing. And I worked with a fellow named Maynard Roberts, and he taught the more or less the industrial part of junior high. And then when the college opened up, he went and talked to the people at ECC and said, I would like to be your drafting instructor. Well, my first year at ECC, Maynard was a master at descriptive geometry. Now, descriptive geometry is a drafting course, but very complicated. And Maynard was an expert on it, and I had never had a course in it. First year at ECC, I had to learn descriptive geometry. I would come home, I would get out my drawing board, and I would learn descriptive geometry. And finally, I guess I did master it, but it is a complicated drawing, more of an engineering subject than anything. And then Maynard and I taught together there for a number of years.
Yes.
Until
where did you teach when you were at Elgin Community College? When you first started teaching?
Okay. Well, the first teaching assignment was at the old Watch Factory College, across from where the casino is now, and we rented the second floor, and we brought the drafting machines up there. We got drafting machines. Dental assisting started up there. Electronics started up there. I remember we got a donation of a huge computer. I think it was from Allstate, but I'm not sure. Sears or Allstate. And it was so big, it was hundreds of tubes, glass tubes, like that's the way everything was then. And all it did was heat the building. It never ran. But Jack Aldoni was electronics instructor. He loved to play with it, but it never worked. And so anyway, we started electronics then too. So we had electronics and drafting, and then dental assisting.
Right.
Dental assisting came along with us up on the second floor.
So after the nursing program, you all were the very first technology program.
Yes, we were the first technology program at the college.
And you were held in the Elgin Watch College.
Yes,
so
right.
It was the Elgin Watch, and they had a watch college.
Yes,
so
right.
You were on that second floor.
Yes. They rented that from them, I guess. So anyway, that was the early assignment.
And so, do you remember how you were actually hired by the college? Do you remember who you interviewed with?
Yeah, well, Don Green was the dean, was appointed dean with the new college, and Maynard was already teaching there. And so I went and I gave my resume to Don Green. And Don Green said, well, we can't take any more from U46. He said, they're yelling at us for hiring all the instructors. So I said, well, okay, that's fine. I said, I have my resume out to Harper, Triton, McHenry, every community college in the area. I said, if you don't hire me, the minute I get an offer from one of those other schools, I said, I'm gone out of Elgin. And he said, well, I didn't know that. I said, well, I want to teach in the community college. And he said, well, in that case, I'll hire you. So he did. He did. He hired me. Sometimes I think he regretted it, but that's all right. It was too late after he hired me. But
and so you were, at that time at Elgin, there were lots of different buildings because you were all downtown.
Yes, that's correct. We all were downtown.
And so you had the dental assisting and you had the drafting and design there at the Watch College.
Yes, and electronics.
And electronics.
Yes.
There.
Mm-hmm.
So who else was on the faculty that you recall when you were hired?
Don Holstrom. In fact, I met Don Holstrom in the summertime when I was younger. I worked for George Dolph Movers. And I met Don Holstrom there, and I said, are you coming, do you teach? And, oh, yeah, I said, I'm going to teach at the college. And Don was a fabulous guy. He was very, very nice. And so we would sit sometime when maybe we were unloading a semi full of furniture or whatever, and we'd talk about the community college. And I said, well, so if I get the chance, I'm going to join you there. And he was one of the first math teachers at ECC. And but he was very nice. He was a very nice gentleman. And so we talked about the community college. And let's see, who else did I know? I knew Ed Schultz. He was also from the math. Those people came right over from U46. Right. A lot of them did. So who else? Let's see. I don't remember who else.
That's all right.
It's been a few years, I think.
Been a few years, right. Tell me what the teaching environment was like at the Elgin Watch College.
It was fine. It was fine.
Can you describe the classroom that you were in?
We had the drafting tables. We went out and we bought new drafting tables and drafting machines and everything else. And there was enough room. The rooms were fairly big, and so we were able to use our drafting machines and so forth. It wasn't much different in a sense that, you did the same thing as you did when we finally moved into the new building.
Okay. But it was mostly with the big drafting tables.
Yes, right.
And everybody with their pencils and
right.
And all
well, we used what they call a drafting machine, which is an arm that you move back and forth, up and down, so it helps you draw. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Tell me about the students at that time. So this was in the late 60s.
Yes.
Do you recall what they were like at that time?
Well, they all were good. You know, when in high school, I think too many of them think it's playtime, and they want to do more social activities than anything. But when they start college, I think they tend to get a little more serious. Mm-hmm. I can't remember anything really significant that happened during that time that would make it stand out. They did have a peace march led by John Neer in the war in Vietnam.
I was wondering if your students were active in any of the...
They weren't. Tech students aren't really active on that stuff, no. But I remember John Neer led the fight against the war in Vietnam.
Right, right. I have a photograph here of your very first graduating class. And certainly, this was back in 1969, I think, or 1970. And we see on one side you, and then on the other side, Mr. Roberts.
Yes, right.
And that was your very first group of students who graduated from your program.
2, 4, 6, 8. I remember this fella here, but I can't think of his name.
That's okay. That's all right.
And that's been a long time ago.
But they finished at the Elgin Watch College
yes.
before we moved to the main campus.
Right.
Right.
I'm sorry, I can't remember them.
No, that's fine. I think that this is such a nice remembrance of that time.
Right.
That time. There came a time when the college decided to come to one campus rather than having all the buildings downtown.
Yes.
And they built a brand new campus. And what did it feel like to be all in one campus rather than in lots of
It was very nice because you could associate and you could talk to other other members of the faculty. And I think that part of it was very nice. And of course, then they had lunch there. You could, you get something, you wouldn't have to carry a sack lunch, and that was nice. That was nice. No, it was really nice to have that big factory, big facility. We had the nicest 2 rooms. The nicest 2 rooms faced the lake, and so we had the nicest 2 rooms before they moved us out.
So when the campus was first constructed, there was the A building.
Yes.
And then they had the B wing, which was the administration wing,
Uh-huh.
and then eventually the math and science wing. But in the very beginning, you were part of in the A building.
Yes, we were.
And you had the nice spread so that you could see the lake.
Yes. Both rooms faced the lake. The side of the room faced the lake, yes.
Now, was that where the cafeteria later was placed?
No, the cafeteria was around. I don't think you could go through the thing to the cafeteria.
Okay.
Maybe you could, I don't remember.
But you were able to see the lake.
Yeah, right, you could watch the lake, yeah.
Yes. And then eventually they built the D building.
Yes, right.
And you had then your own space for technology.
Yes.
How did that feel?
Yes, that was nice. That was nice. We did have one of the things they weren't quite sure of what type of program they wanted to go to. Drafting was pretty well set. Electronics was set. But there was some dispute over whether we should go automotive or with, plants and stuff like that. So automotive won out because a lot of the high school kids love automotive. They like to keep their cars running and so forth. So we did have a good automotive program. I told the dean then, who was Jack Aldoni, I said, I've been in automotive a long time, but I said, everything's changed so much that we have to hire more. So we hired 2 guys out of Wabansie. We stole them from Wabansie. Rick Green and Ken Ronsheimer became our 2 automotive instructors. Right. But we stole them from Wabansie. That's okay. It made our work easier.
I wanted to take our attention. I'd like to come back to collective bargaining because I know that you were active and involved in that.
Yes.
But I'd like to stay with your program for a while.
All right, sure.
All right. Talk to me about computer-aided design.
Okay.
And your vision for that and how that all moved from drafting to computer-aided design.
Right. Okay, well, you want the whole story?
Whatever you want to share.
All right, okay. Well, I was teaching a course, it was called Introduction to Drafting. We figured, well, maybe we could get some more drafting students if we offered the course. And I was telling my class, and I don't remember where I found out about it, but I'd heard a little bit about computer-aided design. And I was telling my class about it, and one of the students raised his hand and said, we have a system at Motorola. So the next week or so, we take a tour through Motorola. And I was amazed at what it did. It was a very simple machine. It didn't do much at all. The computer was not powerful at all. But I was really impressed of what it could do. And I said, oh boy, can we come and bring my students there and take classes there at Motorola? Well, Motorola was very helpful, and they said yes. So I went in and I wrote up a class on Introduction to Computer-Aided Design. Jack Aldoni, who sometimes we fought like cats and dogs, approved, yes. He said, that sounds like a good idea, Kimmey. So we did. So they approved the class, and we started offering courses. We'd go to Motorola on Saturday morning, and then the fellow who headed the CAD program at Motorola would come to ECC and give a lecture. And so that way we could get, the time allotted that we needed for the class.
So was part of the class at the Motorola campus?
Yes.
And part of the class was at the ECC
ECC,
campus?
yes.
Got
yes. It. And so anyway, that went on for, I don't know, a couple of years, year and a half, something like that. But anyway, Motorola finally said, well, we're going to have to close you down because you may be stealing secrets. Electronic secret, we weren't. Anyway. And so anyway, a fellow by the name of Rick Cox, who had been one of my students, and I happened to go to a conference and was put on by ComputerVision. And so anyway, I after they made their presentation, I went up to the salesman and I said, "Do you ever donate systems?" And he laughed at me. He thought I was on drugs, but of course I wasn't. But anyway, he said, "No, we never do." So I said, "Okay, thanks anyway." About 2 weeks later, I get a call from him, and he said, "Do you want a system?" And I said, "Yes. What do I do?" I said, "Who do I have to kidnap or whatever?" And he said, "Well, here's what you do." He gave me a name at ComputerVision to call, and they wanted a executive one-page proposal on what we would do with the CAD system. So anyway, I said, "Okay, we'll do it." The grants writer at that time was Dale Mendel. So I see Dale Mendel, and I said, "Dale, I need help on this." And so we gathered up everything we could find, every lie we could tell, everything that we could do, and we presented it to ComputerVision. And lo and behold, they came to ECC, and they had a conference with us. I don't think Mark Hopkins was there, but Lynn Willett, who was vice president, was there. And so anyway, we had a conference on what we would do and what our responsibility would be and so forth and so on. But see, we had Motorola and we had Baxter Travador Labs, and they had a CV system, and they would help us provide instructors so that we would have excellent instruction from day one. And of course, we didn't know, we weren't very good at it. So anyway, we had the instructors, and I remember ComputerVision coming, we all sitting around the table talking about what we would do with the system, where we'd get the students from, and so forth. And that's when that proposal for 1980 was written. And so then we decided, well, would you like to come to lunch with us? And they said, sure, that would be fine. So we start up Randall Road. Randall Road was cornfield, right? A 2-lane cornfield road. And one of the CV people told me later that, we thought we were going to...
CV, you mean computer?
ComputerVision, yes.
Yes.
They said that we thought we were going to eat in a farmhouse. So anyway, we were... Having been in France, I knew good food. So anyway, we pull into East Dundee, and lo and behold, there's the Café de Louvre, a very fabulous French restaurant. And they were shocked. They were shocked. How did we from Elgin, Illinois, know the Café de Louvre, right? So they enjoyed the meal. I remember one of the CV people, vice president of somebody, and this was a big corporation. And he said, "Do you have French food?" And the Frenchman tells him, "We never serve frozen fish." So anyway, when they got done, these executives said, "We see no reason why ECC cannot have a system, and we'll start the paperwork." And so they left, and I told the waiter, I said, "We need a bottle of champagne." So, of course, I bought a bottle of champagne. There were about 5 of us there. We all split a bottle of champagne, celebrating. And a little later, then, we did get the system in. They installed it. Our obligation was maintenance, and to provide, it had to have special electricity and air conditioning and everything. We provided that. And our only money obligation was the maintenance agreement. And everything was free. I don't know, estimates range from about $700,000 to $1 million worth of hardware and software.
At that time?
At that time, yes.
Right.
And I guess we were just lucky to come across it, and just nobody else wanted it. Nobody else knew anything about it. There was no CAD in local industry. Nobody had any CAD systems. And then, so that got us started. Well, then once we started that program, then of course we could go into computer-aided manufacturing, send all the information directly to the machine tools and have the parts made. And we did get grants for that, but basically from partial grants mostly. But we did get for a couple of milling machines, and I think later on we got a robot machine. But our classes just grew. The first night registration, Judy Job, she didn't know what to do. I almost got fired over that, but the students said, hey, we're going to offer classes. We only had so many openings. They camped out overnight. They camped out overnight, and they decided, oh boy, we want that class. And but Judy Job came along and said, okay, here's numbers for each one of you, 1, 2, 3. You got your numbers. You come in that order, and we'll take care of you the first thing in the morning. But I don't know what they did out overnight, but I got blamed for it. But it's okay. They signed up for the courses.
Right. Yeah. So how did that change your curriculum? How did that change what you did? Getting this $1 million equipment.
Yeah, right. Well, because everything was done differently. You weren't necessarily concerned with a pencil line technique and everything else because the computer did that for you. You just say, well, our system worked off the verb noun modifier. Okay, you should say insert. Okay, that's the verb. Circle would be the noun. And then you would use a modifier like diameter or radius or whatever you wanted to use. And then you'd put a colon, and that meant where do you want it located. Well, the system located everything 19 places to the right of the decimal point. That's how accurate it worked. See, and then you could draw anything that you wanted to. You could modify it, you could stretch it, you could shrink it, you could do anything with it, making design work much easier and, of course, a lot faster. Because if you decided to change something, you could do it in a matter of seconds or a matter of minutes. And it changed the whole way that you thought about design work and drafting. And no more, your lines can't cross like that. They have to be perfectly, the system did that for you. And, of course, there's all kinds of modifiers that you could use to do it. How'd you learn all those commands? It had hundreds of commands. You didn't know them all, but you tried to fake it if you couldn't know them all. But I got to know a lot of them.
So that changed your life as a faculty member, too?
Oh, absolutely. We had to go in front of the faculty. Mark Hopkins, I think, was president then. And we had to justify the budget for the following year. Edith Nagler, remember Edith?
Yes.
Okay. She wanted, I don't know, a $200 unit. So the faculty said, yes, okay. I said I need $50,000 to hire a new instructor on the CAD program. But I said, if you don't know what CAD's doing, it's going to revolutionize everything you manufacture. Everything that you say, I'll know about that. And apparently they believed me because they voted the $50,000. So, but they had to. Some of the administrators had never heard of it, had no idea, and one of them said, why do you think that they'll approve this? I said, if you want to stay alive, you're going to have to approve it. You cannot put your head in the sand when it's all coming out, right now. So they did approve it. And even though I think some of the administrators weren't too happy. But because it does cost money. It does cost money. But if you want to provide quality education, it's not cheap. You got to pay for it.
And so, based on your program and this innovation of computers in your program, there came a time when the Department of Education for the United States saw the quality of your program.
Yes.
And they awarded you the Elgin Community College Computer-Aided Drafting and Design and Manufacturing Program.
Yes.
An Innovation Award.
Right.
Can
Yes,
you talk
yes,
about
we did.
that?
Yes, they did. I remember that what happened. Don Green, who was the dean then, he took off for England that summer, And he said, Kimmy, if you want to do it, you do it. So I said, well, okay, I'll try it. So we got the paperwork, and we started saying, well, how can we snow the U.S. Department of Education? So first of all, you have minorities being interviewed, right? You have minority instructors. And then when they come, you show them all this stuff, and oh boy, and so we really impressed. A guy came out of Chicago and interviewed us and said, well, yes, okay, I'll submit your application. And then lo and behold, we won that award. It was a very nice award, and it, of course, directly came from the U.S. Office of Education.
And this is a photograph taken of you in 1984 when your program was awarded.
Yes, right. Okay, now there's Maynard and Don Green and Maury Munch. Maury Munch was more or less in the CAD program, or the CAM program. Let's see, who was the other fella? Dennis Werdell. Okay, I think Dennis, yes, I remember Dennis too. He was electronics instructor. Yeah, now that was a nice award. It really was, you know.
You are to be congratulated for that.
Mm-hmm.
It was the Outstanding Vocational Education Program of 1984.
Yes.
That's quite a recognition.
Yes, it is. I think so too.
You were also recognized as a Community College Teacher of the Year.
Yes.
Can you talk to us about that recognition?
Well, I don't remember too much about it. I do remember this, that I think Carol Ackerman, I think she did most of the writing on that. I just can't remember, but anyway, it seemed to me she did. And that summer, at the end of August, we were flying off to France. And so I had to go down to Springfield to accept the reward. And I said, I'll be on an airplane on the way to France. And Dr. Apple said, I will go and get it for him. And so Dr. Apple went down to Springfield and got the award for me. And I thought that was very nice of him.
And so that award was waiting for you when you returned from
Yes,
France.
yes, it was waiting for me when I returned, yes. Yeah, that was nice. That was nice. Mainly, I think I got the award because of the CAD system and what we had done to get the CAD system going. And but it was fun. I enjoyed every minute of it. Really I did. You see all the letters that we got supporting the CAD program, and of course you had to write them a letter and say we could use your support, and they said yes, sure, we got support from big corporations, little people, all kinds of people that said yes, they should have the CAD system. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed working with them. One thing that you had to get used to, in fact, was that these guys that ran ComputerVision, it was the largest system in the world at that time, and they all were executives that I had to deal with, and I had to. I wanted to compete with them.
Just you were a regular old faculty member.
Yeah, right. So, but I enjoyed it. Right. We went to a convention one time with ComputerVision at the Fontainebleau in Miami.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that was nice. That was nice. So of course they had money. And I said I'd like to go and talk a little bit about CAD education. So they said, okay, well, come free, and I'd make a short presentation. And it was nice going down to Fontainebleau.
Very nice. Very nice. So let me take you back to after you received the recognition from the U.S. Department of Education for your program. That was in 1984. Soon after that, the college decided to recognize the Faculty Association.
Yes.
Can you talk to us about your role in the whole collective bargaining?
Okay, well, I will go back to day one.
Good.
Okay, Mark Hopkins, when he came in to talk to the faculty, he said, we got to get rid of the deadwood. That's practically the exact words he said. So anyway, we thought, that's kind of strange. The first day we met the president. So anyway, we had student evaluations. He took 8 faculty members who got poor student evaluations and said, we have to get rid of these people. He said, students don't like them and they're not doing a good job. We're going to get rid of him, rid of them. So anyway, the rest of us said, hey, that's not right. The student evaluations necessarily don't tell the whole story. They may say some things, but not the whole thing. So we said, well, what can we do? And I remember there were about 6 or 8 of us that said, hey, we got to do something. Do we want to join IEA, the NEA, or whatever? So we decided, we checked with all of them. We decided to go with the NEA. No, wait, AFT. Decided to go with the AFT. And so we voted
the
members.
American Federation of Teachers.
Yeah, American Federation of Teachers. And they said, well, if you want to get rid of them, you're going to have to fight the AFT. And so then Mark Hopkins finally backed off and said, well, I guess it wasn't all student evaluations were cracked up to be. So he kind of let up then, and then he left shortly afterwards, I think. And but that's how we got involved. There were 5 or 6 of us. We discussed it. We talked about the dues. Do non-members pay dues, and all the things like that you have to do. But I think it was a good move. It was a good move. We had to do it, and of course, you see what it's led to. But faculty, So when I was interim dean, sometimes I conflicted with the union, but that's all right.
Are there any faculty, staff, or administrators who particularly stand out in your mind?
I think Lynn Willett and Judy Job. Lynn Willett was always very willing to go along with what we said and listen to what we had to say. Some of them don't like to listen. And Judy Job was always very good. Anything she could do for the students, she would do. She was very student-oriented. And she used to swear at me once in a while, but that was okay. I didn't mind.
Are there any stories or anecdotes that you'd like to share about students or colleagues?
And one thing the students did, and I haven't talked about this, is that the night that I don't know, I guess I mentioned my retirement, they said, come on, Kimmey, we got to go get some coffee. And of course, we were in one building. We walked over. All right, well, I shouldn't really go. Oh, come on. I walked in, and there was, I don't know, lots and lots of students. I can't remember president then. Who was the president? Anyway, the president was there. I think a board member was there. And they put a huge display of food, and people stood up and said, well, you got the CAD system, It was very nice. I really enjoyed that. And then of course, they set up a scholarship fund in my name. And I don't know where they got the money. I hope they didn't rob anybody, but...
I think that's important that there's...
Yeah, that made me feel good. Yes, it did. Yes, it did.
Talk to us about your decision to retire.
Well, I don't know. We had just gotten a new powerful CAD system in. It was a Unix-based system, and it isn't that, I knew how to manipulate it and everything else. It's just that I had hoped to go to work for ComputerVision. And I had given my resume to the personnel person at ComputerVision and said, now, if you need somebody, you let me know. I said, I'll be more than happy to come and work for you. They had already offered me a job. They said, anytime you want to come and teach for us, we'll hire you the next day. And I said, okay, good. But I only had like 3 or 4 years to retirement. I said, when I retire, I will give you my resume. Well, about that time, ComputerVision had been bought out by another company called Prime, and I didn't realize that things had changed, and so ComputerVision went under. But and so there went my job. But what I did then, because of the contacts with Southern, I was on the list for being a adjunct faculty for Southern. And then I traveled all over. I went down to Arkansas one time, and I was saying, well, I said, now I hear you take a pop break between classes, on break time. And some lady raised her hand and said, we don't call it pop, it's sody pop. But anyway, it was fun. Yeah, I went to Arkansas. I went to up to New England one time to teach classes for them, and that kept me pretty busy.
You were also instrumental in Southern Illinois University being able to offer classes.
Yes, I did catch a little hell for that, but what happened was this. Ray Corporation from Crystal Lake, the lady there wanted some of her people to get a bachelor's degree. And so the only off-campus bachelor's degree there was for Southern. And it was a kind of like a capstone program. We were kind of ahead of the other schools because like Northern didn't want any part of our students. You had to start over from day one, all the things like that. And so they wouldn't give them credit for their community college work. So our students didn't go there. But anyway, a fellow by the name of Dr. Orr, or Dr. Andrews, both of them, they said, well, we could come up to Northern Illinois and we could teach our off-campus program for this company. So I don't know how Dr. Orr got to know me, but he said, Jim, can you help us? We want to set up an off-campus program. And I said, what would you like me to do? He said, we need students. I said, how many you want? Well, I should have at least 20. So I recruited 15 to 20 CAD students, and I said, go up to Crystal Lake and start taking these courses. I said, all day Saturday, all day Sunday, three weekends in a row, and you've got credit for that class. And so anyway, we tried to get them at ECC. ECC was very uncooperative. They would not give them heat in the wintertime or cooling in the summer. They said, no, our system doesn't work that way. I said, okay. So they went back to Ray Corporation and went to class there. But we had about 15 or 20 graduate from the program. And the success that those people had was unbelievable with the CAD program and then a bachelor's degree on top of it. And then after that, Southern said, well, okay, if you need us again, let us know. And they never did, but it was really a boom for about 15 CAD students because it really helped them on the road up the ladder in industry.
Absolutely. After you retired, then there was a time when you came back as an administrator.
Yes. What happened was Dr. Flores was president. The dean at that one time, he didn't like Dr. Flores, so he quit, cold turkey. Maynard had some heart surgery, and so...
That's Maynard Roberts.
Yeah, Maynard Roberts, yeah. And so they asked me, they said, well, you've been acting dean before. I said, yeah. I said, well, would you like the job? I said, well, I don't care. And so they said, okay, 10 months. I went in there. It's really nice because you negotiate your own salary. I said, I want X number of dollars every 2 weeks. And I don't know, there was a lady vice president. I don't remember her name.
Dr. Berry.
Yes,
Berry.
Right. And I said, I want this much money. And of course, she had the dicker. So she took off $50 and said, how's that? I said, yeah, that's okay. So I got the job. I made as much money as they're allowed to make. I don't remember what it was. And I redid my kitchen. And I bought a 230 Mercedes with the money I made. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I think because it's always nice to have a job when if they give you a hard time, you say goodbye and go home. And that's what I could do. I didn't, but because I enjoyed it, you know. I had to reprimand, one student had complained to Flores about, oh, that teacher was terrible, and I had to talk to this teacher. And it's hard. How do you talk to an award-winning teacher about, hey, the students are complaining about you? It's hard to do. It's hard to do. So I thought I was very tactful with that, but you had to be tactful because, you know, he was not a bad teacher. But, you know, that's hard to do. And
so after that, what have you been doing in your retirement?
Well, let's see, what have I been doing? Okay, my Southern Illinois ended up, I was doing some consulting for ComputerVision, the little system. That's all gone now. And in 1999, we spent 12 weeks in France. And since then, we haven't been back. Then my son died, and so my wife died. And so I met a lady in all places at church, and we decided, well, we could live together. And so I do a lot of the cooking. She had trouble boiling water. I hate to say that. But anyway, so I do a lot of the cooking, and she plays in 3 symphony orchestras. And so she plays the notes, and then I do the cooking in the afternoon. And then I take it over to her house at night, and I spend the night over there. And, you know, we talk, and it's companionship. And you have to have that. If you want to stay alive, you have to have it. You cannot live by yourself. So we get along well.
I would like to close our interview, if you could,
All right.
and read what was given to you upon your retirement, and I think this would be an apt way to end our visit with you.
Okay. A tribute. I'll try to. Every student who came to you was always called by name. Respected because they came. No one was told to go away. It was always together. We will find a way. Life's changed, lived full, and rich today because you gave so freely, everyday teaching, beyond the contract's call. Teaching, you always gave your all, and others might learn lessons beyond the classroom wall. We who knew you knew how every special you are. Unique, one among many, here. Come this thought, what a truly great gentleman, our Jim Kimmey.
Thank you.
That's beautiful. I don't know if I deserve it, but
Thank you very much.
oh, thank you.